What's up, bookworms? Welcome to episode 121 of the Cantina Book Club podcast, where readers can find interviews with authors of all genres. I am Megan, self proclaimed content queen, here to bring you insights from the authors themselves. Each week features a Cantina conversation with an author. Sometimes they're a returning guest, and sometimes it's someone new. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on an episode. Feel free to browse through existing episodes so that you can catch an interview about a book that you finished. Today's episode features a chat with Nicholas Keating Casbarro. We're talking about his book Vitalerium, Descent into the Void. That book is available now. It's a long chat. It's a long conversation, but it was seriously probably one of my favorites of the last 6 months. Nicholas was he was at the airport, and he was when we were trying to schedule this conversation, he was such a trooper, and we made it work, and it ended up being such an enjoyable conversation. And I loved his story. I loved Vitalarium. I loved the world building, and I loved the characters. But I also had a bone to pick with him, so that was really fun to give him a little shit about some plot choices that he made. Now, some spoilers do pop up in this episode, but honestly, the interview is more enjoyable if you've read the book. So if you don't know why I am giving him shit for, as I previously said, if you don't know why I'm giving him shit for some plot choices that he made, hit pause, add this episode to your playlists, and go pick up a copy of Delirium. This interview will be ready when you are ready. Just a heads up that I often use adult language to express my feelings towards these authors and their work. So whether the characters need to get their shit together, or I am saying what the fuck to Nicholas for making me feel things, just please be mindful around listening ears. Books coming out this week of January 12th. We've got In Stasis by Ashley Peters. This is speculative fiction. It is pretty good. It's very character driven. If imagining a what if. It's a what if, and it's got some scary parallels to what we're currently dealing with. And also I've got my interview with Ashley coming out next week. So if you want to listen to that episode, be sure to check out the book first. It's going to be ready for you. And then A Method of Reaching Extreme Altitudes is a collection of short stories by Nancy J. Allen. I have not read this yet, but I am so looking forward to it. I love a good collection of short stories. And now a word from Crystal Hope, founder of the book Podcast Connection.
Hello, listeners. My name is Crystal Hope. I am the host of Must Love Books podcast and the organizer of the book Podcast Connection. The BPC is a networking group of over 100 book-related podcasts, from fantasy to romance to horror and every genre in between. There are even podcasts for authors and writers. Check us out on Instagram at Book Podcast Connection or at www.bookpodcastconnection.com and discover your next bookish obsession.
Now, I know I'm biased, but I definitely recommend that if you are looking to get more out of your reading lists, to check out the wonderful plethora of amazing bookish podcasts out there and look to Book Podcast Connection. Without further ado, get ready, grab your favorite drink. Here is Nicholas Keating Casbarro. So today we've got Nicholas Keating Casbarro. We are talking about his book, Vitalerium. I think I pronounced that, Descent into the Void. Nicholas, thanks for joining me today. I just finished this book. It's fresh in my brain. What a ride. Okay. Lots of world building, lots of action. The characters were hilarious and great and amazing. I'm excited to dig a little bit deeper today.
Hey, I'm excited as well. Yeah.
So to get started, can you share a summary of the book so that people can follow along with the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vitalerium is a kind of a far future space odyssey. So it follows humanity after we become multiplanetary, which is all thanks to the discovery of an exotic new material, which allows for an Alcubierre-style drive. So in 94, Miguel Alcubierre is a physicist, wrote a paper that basically discussed a workaround for the universal speed limit, which is the speed of light. And he describes an exotic material that would be required to basically power this type of drive. My answer to that was Vitalerium. So it's basically a new element to the periodic table, which is not only the fuel, but also the mode of achieving that type of travel. So we colonize new planets, we explore the cosmos. In the book, you fast forward 700 years on the 7th colonized human planet. You get dropped into the front seat of Roman Matthews, who is, when you meet him as an adult, he is a roughneck freelancer, basically a mercenary doing odd jobs for local gangs when you first meet him. So he's definitely a morally great protagonist, and he certainly has a talent for violence, although a strange bit of a moral compass as well. A near-death experience involving the most regulated and most important resource to humanity, which becomes Vitalerium, basically it embroils him in a massive conspiracy that has the totalitarian government of his planet hunting him. And so he has to band together with kind of a motley crew, both in the underworld and in the public eye, to be able to survive the ordeal. And that's just what book one. I do have 7 books planned in the series.
Perfect. Yeah, we're gonna get into all of that because like I have like probably 4 pages of notes, and just from trying to keep track of, because there's the pretty sophisticated plot and there's a lot going on. And just the world building is just done really have a tendency. I haven't read a sci-fi in a long time, so I was really excited. I didn't know what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised. So like I was like, okay, time to put my thinking cap on. And there was just like, especially during the last probably 50 or so 100 pages where there's just it's dialed up to like 1,000, and then here I am like I right now I'm reading like a holiday rom-com because I need a palate cleanser after everything that you got going out of this story. I was pleasantly surprised. And so okay, I want to talk about like your background, either personal or professional, and any experiences that might have how did you bring Vitalarium into the world?
Yeah, so that's a good question. As far as just how it started, I was in my last position, I was on a plane 3 to 5 days a week. I'm actually at an airport
Mm,
lounge right now. I'm just trying to find a quiet spot. But I still travel a lot for work, but I was 3 to 5 days a week. That's a lot of plane time. And
yeah.
eventually you run out of things to watch on Netflix. I remember the first flight, it was a long flight. It was from Miami to Hawaii. So there was a layover and everything else. And I was downloading episodes to a show I didn't wanna watch. And, it just I was like, "You know what? This is a huge waste of my time," like, and I was only about 6 months into the company, and I said, "You know what? Let's do something else," and I had a number of ideas that I wanted to do something with, and I just decided, "You know what? Let's just give this a go." So I started with a little bit of a history, which I went through broad strokes of earlier in the podcast, but from there, it just snowballed. I got off the plane in Hawaii, and I was on chapter 4. A
Mm,
and so it just poured out of me at that stage, and mind you, it was super rough. Like, that was the first time.
that's the job of the first draft, is to be a fruit.
Exactly. I wish I had a copy of it just to go back and humble myself a little bit at what the original draft looked like, but, it was great to have a creative outlet again. I just had so much fun with it that I was like, "I gotta see this through." And then started the world building because I realized, okay, I've got all these ideas, I better organize them. And I ended up basically defining the entire universe. Everything from we've got 7 planets according to this history that I wrote. What are those planets like? How many moons do they have? What are the people like there? What's the government and social structure? And every time I answered a question, 5 more came up. And
Yeah.
so I ended up diving into the flora and fauna on the planet, which in this book, in Vitalarium, you end up having some encounters with some very vicious fauna on the planet. It is a rugged planet. And that is one of the things that Roman has in his tool bag. That's his skill set is he is very well versed with the terrain of the planet, the different types of creatures that you can run into there, and that's the reason why he's able to do the work that he does, is because he can travel into the areas that are not inhabited on the planet and survive. Because on
Mm,
planet Diorum, where the majority of the story takes place, everyone lives like 99.999% of people live within the borders of the city of Kairos, which is a mega city so large you can literally see it from orbit. But other than that, the planet is completely untamed. And so his ability to be able to basically just survive in the wild, it becomes becomes not only a skill, but it becomes his source of income as he's
mm.
floating through life when you meet him.
Yeah, and it's kind of like because yeah, like you said, when we meet him, he's like rugged and kind of like ruthless, and yeah, like kind of maybe like a questionable moral compass, or maybe like it's consistent, but it's like not,
Yeah.
like he definitely has a soft spot for certain situations and certain things. but it's because of his upbringing. Because when we meet him, we're like, he's had to develop street smarts, but also he still retains some of that like academic adjacent intelligence, like you said, with the flora and the fauna, where he's got to be really familiar with the creatures that he's up against and the other organic life that he's up against on the land that he's trying to make the most of.
Yeah, and when you're diving into his backstory at the very beginning of the book, because when you first meet him, he isn't an adult. You get to meet him as a preteen almost,
Yeah.
and he is one of the encounters that he has with his father is his father's quizzing him on the Fauna Diorum books that he has probably just lining his little shop. And his father's a hunter, so he gets excited because he wants to be like his father. And then tragedy strikes of sorts. So, yeah, so obviously I had to figure out a way to basically this kind of mercenary who's basically a gun for hire, living in kind of with the dregs of society. Like it doesn't happen overnight. And so I wanted to give some backstory as to how we arrive at the lost soul that you meet that is Roman. He's drunk, definitely some questionable moral.
He sleeps around.
Yeah, he's
It's funny, like, because we meet him as like a preteen where he's athletic. We meet him playing a game where he's doing really well. He's got to learn how to like, we see some of his leadership instincts. And then, so it's, I don't know, like I'm a mom of two little boys. And so I'm like, okay, like I got that little soft spot for him already. And then one of the next things we see, he's like waking up out of bed from a threesome and he's trying to remember like wait, there's too many legs. What's going on? I love it. I love it. It's so funny. Cause it's like, okay, Roman, okay, buddy. It's like just gives us like a little more of a insight into who he is as like he's self-medicating and
Mhm.
he's not used to he doesn't we meet him where he almost not like rock bottom, but he's straight up like he doesn't have any like close relationships because buddy who he's had is like gone and has been taken away from him. And so it's a sense that he's kind of just like detached and having fun and self-medicating and I just think it adds so much to his and it makes me like him more. It makes me like him more, even if he's just like, let's go, let's see where the day takes you.
Yeah, and my way of doing that again was to show how he was brought up, like what the foundation of his morals were with his parents and the kind of interactions that they have, and then show what the life on the street basically taught him because he ends up basically joining a gang at age like 15 or 16. And that's the Wibitani militia, which also creates some other interesting interactions throughout because it's also a gang that he leaves to basically just work on his own when he gets into his 20s. And once again, also related to tragedy that kind of strikes unexpectedly while he is part of the Wibitani militia. And so he has a tenuous relationship with the leader of the Wibitani because of the fact that he left, even though he was like because he was like the rising star within that militia. And so his relationship with Modus Magni, who is the general of the Wibitani militia, very interesting character as well. I have a whole backstory planned for him for an offshoot series eventually
Perfect.
down the line. I'm really proud of that character.
I imagine you couldn't help it. Like, you're like, "This guy won't leave you alone." Like
I literally couldn't help it. I was like, I have to
Yeah.
make something for this guy and I also have some rough ideas on paper already as to what that's going to look like because his backstory is, so Roman is from Diorum. Modus is from Earth and he was special forces in the military there. He ends up getting kicked out and leaves, basically just escapes the planet with all of the cybernetic bionic enhancements that were given to him by the military and ends up on Diorum during the kind of Vitalerium gold rush that happens after the planet is colonized. And he's like, all right, he's a little bit of a renegade too, extremely intelligent, very talented. He's got a mind for strategy for sure. But he's like, all right, what are my skill sets? I'm military. He got kicked out for smuggling and he decides to basically start building his own militia on planet Diorum. And that's how he comes to the position of power that he's in. So he is, again, a very interesting character. And their relationship also hits some strenuous notes
Yeah.
when a certain relationship begins as well.
I love all the messiness. I just love all the messiness because it was almost like I could see it coming, but then I was just like, I love chaos and I love when you throw stuff at your characters because Roman, he's just one of those people, and I even like Modus too. They've been through it when they have this level of confidence and comfortability and familiarity with what they do in the world around them. But then when you put them in situations where they're like, we have no idea. This is it's we've never approached this territory before. Like this type of familiarity with each other, this relationship with each other, and how much we care about certain people and how that affects what they've already established. I love it when authors put their characters through situations that like just stumble them up and humble them too and just throw them for a loop. I love it. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I had a lot of fun writing some of those, because I really enjoy and I'm sure you were able to pick this up yourself, but I enjoy writing the meaningful dialogue between characters because I feel like not only can I tell you a lot about the world that they're in, but I can tell you a lot about who that character is, what they stand for, by how they're reacting or how they're talking about certain situations. So that's something that I feel like you'll get a lot of in this book. I don't know. Do you agree with that? Like,
Yeah, yeah, as far as, like, the character, because it's so the character relationships and how they speak with one another, there's, like, opportunities for, world building and also character development, and so when yeah, just, like, some of his interactions, like Roman's interactions with Norval or with Modus, it's, like, even just changing, like, noticing the nuance of, like, okay, how is he approaching this new relationship, this new interaction with someone new versus someone who he definitely has history with. It's like there's a level of comfort there, and there's a level of just history there where he's already like, "Yeah, okay, what?" Versus he's maybe like when he meets certain people, he's still, "Okay, I don't have time for this," but he's also like, "Okay, I guess I have to still interact with this person." And then even when we get towards the end, when he's just and it seems like there's no hope left and he meets another character that he has like a reluctant alliance with, and even then he's just like, "I don't fucking care anymore. I'm not interested in whatever you have to say," but then he's like he acquiesces that he's like, "Okay, I guess I have no choice." And so it's like the examples like that where like, yeah, definitely you can when there's dialogue, you have this is just me because I read, but it's also so tricky when there's so much world building versus like depending on genre. Like you're sci-fi, you're gonna approach it differently than like historical fiction or romance or a fantasy. You're gonna approach these things different ways. But at the end of the day, it's like character relationships. It's yeah, you have to like how it's almost like the iceberg, like the beneath the backstory and the underneath
mhm.
what's not being said, like show don't tell. And it's like you could see his demeanor change person to person. So no, I definitely picked up on that.
Oh, good. Awesome. It's good to hear.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and the relationships were important to me because it's a multi-narrative book. There is a lot going on, and so to make sure that you're grounding the reader and making sure that they're remembering who that person is, what they're like, it was important for me to make them stand out. And the relationships become exceptionally important to Roman's character growth because as you see toward the end of the book, when he ends up having a relationship with the daughter of his former mentor, Modus Magni, or name's Monique Magni, and she eventually oh, you said people are reading this anyway.
Yeah.
So she ends up being killed, and that shows not only character growth for Roman, but for Modus as well. And for Roman, that is like the ultimate breaking point because up until he met Monique, his life was defined by loss and trauma and everything else, which is why he's self-medicating. That's why he's so rough around the edges. However, after meeting her, it's almost like he finally sees an inkling of an opportunity for like a semi-normal life, like the one that he grew up in. And he falls pretty hard for that. It's definitely her. They're definitely alike in a lot of ways, maybe even toxically at times, as you can see through some of the scenes. But
Mhm.
the, it, when she basically is killed, you basically see like any like his vision for any sort of normal life is just shattered, which sends him way over the edge into basically his rediscovery of purpose. which is
Mhm.
really what a lot of this story, or at least this part of the story, is about. What that purpose is going to evolve significantly, but because you're basically watching the emergence of I evolve there's a lot of different things that have inspired me over the years. There's a lot of interests that I have that I wanted to weave into this. I'm obviously fascinated by science fiction and just science in general. I'm not a physicist, I acknowledge that, but I read physics papers and scientific articles to try and make sure I'm grounding what I'm writing in that. I'm fascinated by ancient civilizations and mythology and things like that, and I try and weave that in where I can.
That's so interesting because that makes so much sense when you're building a world that's, like, exploring how man would colonize other planets and how it's, like, almost like starting over
Yeah.
again. And, yeah, I wanna piggyback on that with another question that I usually ask is, like, about the research because I imagine you went down, like, so many rabbit holes and got carried away, like, 3 or 4 hours of research for, like, very maybe only 2 sentences made it into the book for,
Yeah.
things like that. I love to ask authors about research because of that. Was there how did I wanna explore how you approached that, and was there anything, like, surprising that you learned? Stuff like that.
Oh, every day I learn something surprising and new. I feel like we're going through a little bit of like a scientific renaissance lately, I feel, because there has been new stuff literally daily coming out as far as research, and that is phenomenal inspiration to have as I'm trying to plan some of the future books. But I'd say that the first book took me 2 years to write because as I was doing it, I'm building the universe, and I used to take specific time to just say, "Okay, today I'm not gonna write today, I'm going to look things up that I've heard about that are interesting, I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna start adding to this monstrosity of a storyboard that I have, define some new species of animal, define a different planet." At one point, I had to build a religion because
Mm,
there's a religion in the future, and what does that look like? All right, let's write the tenets to it and see what that turns
yeah.
into. And just to put it out there, I should put this in one of my books, but no one's gonna be turning my shit into some religion down the line. So that's I'm gonna have to put that in my book that at no point can this be
It's like,
utilized
what
for
how do you,
that.
like, trademark, like, "This belongs to you." You're not trying to develop, like, a new following in that term. You
Yeah.
just have to just trademark it so that, like, hopefully you protect it at some
Yeah,
point, if you haven't already.
I'm not trying to get you to join my cult, but this it's
No.
just these are they're all vehicles for me to basically discuss different philosophical elements of the
Although I wouldn't
human nature.
mind hanging out with Emmanuel for an afternoon. He sounds like a solid, like, interesting dude. It's just like, how did you like that I imagine that maybe that's another backstory for you to develop down the
S
line is, like, he
You know what's funny is Emmanuel is based on a real person I know.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's a surgeon in Nigeria that I met.
Oh,
Like, and my day job is I work in medical devices, so that's why I'm flying all over the place. And I met this surgeon, and he was just full of life. He's a stud when it comes to like
mm,
his training and his expertise. He's just an absolute and sees horrific things. He's a burn surgeon and
mhm.
he works with
Yeah,
pediatric burns. And so
yeah.
just his life story and his outlook, he was one of the happiest, most down to earth guys, but absolutely brilliant. I was like, I got to make a character after this guy. So I ended up asking him, I was like, hey, I'm making a character after you. Do you mind if I use your name? And he was like, oh, yeah, use my middle name. More people know me by that. He's such a cool guy. And so he was one of the first, actually the first copy of the book that I received that I actually sent out to
Oh,
someone was to him.
I imagine he approved of how you portrayed him
Yeah.
in the book,
Oh, yeah.
like, because yeah, I mean no, yeah, Emmanuel, he's just kinda like he's mysterious enough, but it's also like, nah, like, dig him. I could dig
Yeah.
him for sure. He's mysterious where it's like, why? Because even Roman's like, "What are you like, who are you? Why do you know how to do these things?" But then this is where you end up, and it's just like he's like, "Who are you talking to, boy?" Like, he's like he could kinda lay it back with him and just be like, "Okay, okay, little boy. I saved you years ago, and you're gonna come at me like this?" Like, it's yeah, I love that little exchange.
Yeah, that was a tough chapter to write. That took I had to write that and rewrite that a number of times to get that because
What was the hardest part? Like, why was it so difficult?
getting the goal aligning the philosophical discussion with the
Okay,
goal of where the
yeah.
story was going and the realization that Roman was coming to, while also making sure that Emmanuel was sticking to his guns, but also recognizing, like,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can really do to stop this? It's not my
Yeah.
place." Despite the fact that he is, again, almost like a mentor to Roman.
Yeah.
And so that was a complex because that one chapter, it's basically just a conversation between 2 people over a medical table, right? That was a tough one to write, to get that right.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense because yeah, absolutely. I felt like that was an appropriate last step. Like when you strip all of it down, he's got nothing left to lose. And that's like kind of the last step where Emmanuel is like, do not stray like that path. Do not like become so incredibly jaded and detached from a reality that you're missing these like important like components to like the big picture. And he's like, he was trying so hard, but I think that was like such a beautiful place in Roman's story, like, to complete his rein him in a little bit, try to remind him, like, nobody's denying the fact that you have gone through it, like, you've gone through it, like, nobody is denying that you are in a bad place and that you've been through some shit, but he's, like, almost like, "Come on, please, like, do not go so far off the deep end that you cannot come back." It's that was just so, like it was, like, kinda the last step where it's like he needed that little reminder, that little pep talk of just to be like, it's like, you're not horrible, you're not wrong to think the things that you are thinking. But yeah, like you said, like Emmanuel kind of sticking to his guns. He's like, I'm not, this is what I need you to remind you of because this is, it's not like he didn't want to give in, but he's so comfortable and confident with himself. Emmanuel is that he's like, no, like, it's so much bigger than that, like, it's so much bigger than that, like, don't, like, do yourself but then, like, towards the end of their conversation to himself, he's like, maybe that you are what we need for something to change, for the pendulum, as you say, and, yeah, it was just, like, for the length that this book is and I finished it, like, so quickly because I just wanted to keep reading. That's, like, when I know that the story had me engaged and it was entertaining, and I feel like we could fill 2 hours of, like, what I wanna but I don't wanna hog your time waiting at the airport, but
I
I feel like there's so much that, like, we could get
I've got
you just,
nothing
like,
but
have all the
time.
time?
I've got nothing but time. My flight's not till,
Alright,
like,
no, don't
6.
okay, don't tell me that because then I might use it until I gotta get going, but 'cause I got some time too. Yeah, so, like, and again, I'm gonna be all over the place,
I
and I
did
wanna
wanna
make
add
sure,
another
like
note, if you don't mind.
yeah,
So,
go
I know
for it.
we talked about the Emmanuel character, but a number of the characters throughout the book are based on people that I know in real life. So,
Yeah?
yeah, and I just wanted to feel like
Okay, who else? Go down the roster. Okay.
Braxton Hughes, Norval,
Okay, so who is Norval based on? Because I really liked him. I feel like I wanna be his best friend. He's and
a friend of mine, a friend of mine. It just
do you
fit
think
the
all
bill right.
know?
Oh, yeah, I tell people,
Okay,
and I feel like doing that adds an extra breath of life into the character because I know how they would speak in different scenarios. I know how they would react to certain situations because I've seen it. And again, that it helps to have real scenarios as a guide to creating characters. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's
I that's so fun because that does I think that's really common, though. I think also just because of all the other things that you had to keep track of, like, in your story to make sure all the dots stay connected and that everything was consistent. Because not only are you building this, like, new world, but you're still adding, like, the politics and the oppressed groups and the secret groups, like, or underground, and then, like, the potentially triggering content, like the poverty and the death and the oppression and the human trafficking and, like, all of that. So it makes sense that you were just kinda leaning on towards personalities that you already knew so well, so that you could be like, "Let's see, these are characters and this is the role that they're gonna play, but for the sake of personality and character development, this is where you're gonna start." Like, this you're gonna start, like, you got your little blueprint. Because I always joke with people who write sophisticated plot lines who I imagine if you're like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where he's on the board with all the Post-it
it's one of
notes,
my
the tape, he
favorite
looks all
memes. It's
crazy.
one of
Yeah,
the
it's such a meme that could apply to almost any author and almost any, like, deep diving bookworm because then this story reminds me of when I interview authors, I just take notes even if it's just keeping track of what happens and, like, a timeline and stuff, but it helps me, like, organize my thoughts, and so I can imagine whatever, like, if you're your Google search history is a mess. If your Post-it notes or your desktop on your computer files are a mess, like I can't whatever your organization system is, I figure it's forgivable if you have a little Charlie in you.
Yeah, I definitely organization was a huge thing writing this story because like you said, there's a lot of moving parts. And to make them align, it didn't always line up perfectly at first. There are many moments where I would like jump out of the shower with like a good idea, like, oh man, like I got to write this down because I found a better way to do something. And maybe I would just
Yeah.
allude to it earlier and then go back and it would make more sense in later text. Or I thought of a good quote that would be like a good defining quote for a character. I got to write it down. It's always when I'm in the shower and when I'm on the cusp of sleep. I get the best
Of
ideas, and then
course,
I'm waking up my wife
of
with my
course.
phone light because I gotta write it down next to me, and she's like, "Go to bed."
She's like, "Ah,
Yeah,
again?" Like, "Turn your brain off, honey." Like
yeah, that I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. That's
Yeah, that's okay. That's so funny. No, it's so true because it's like a lot of authors, it's like, oh, they're walking and they're trying to, like, enjoy their me time or they're trying to wind down, trying to clear their head, and that's when that happens, not when they're, like, at their desk or at their computer, it's when they're enjoying fresh air or listening to a book or a podcast or music and just, like, enjoying getting some vitamin D and getting some movement, and that's all of a sudden, like, oh, inspiration strikes and you're like, "Ah, shit," like, you gotta take notes on your phone or something. That's so funny that you write because 'cause I've heard of people, like this was a concept I think I heard, like, a while ago where people write, like, if you wake up and you have a dream, like a lucid dream, and you'll forget it. If you have, like, a dream journal and you just write it immediately after you wake up, because then weeks later, you will have, like, no idea. You will completely forget it. I've been having like, I'll have some really lucid dreams where, like, my husband will have to wake me up because 'cause I'm, like, hyperventilating or I'm, like, talking in my sleep, and I'm like, "I'm sorry." Like, I bet that was terrifying to witness, but it's one of those things where I'm like, "I should start writing this down just to be like, what am I doing?" But it's a whole thing because the human brain is so crazy to me, but that's funny. That makes total sense that you're like, "No, like, I just gotta" like, you keep a notepad by your bathroom or
yeah.
whatever.
It's funny you bring up the dreams thing because that's where a lot of different inspiration came from that basically led to the start of the book too, and some of the major ideas in it. Like, for instance, I have some pretty fucked up dreams.
Yeah,
I
it's okay, there's no judgment, it's just your brain trying to make sense of things,
yeah.
and it's just like it depends on whatever you're putting onto paper, right?
Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis?
No, no,
No?
not that I know of. I've been in dreams where I can't move or speak, but I don't know if that transfers to, like, in the real
It
world if I'm, like, trying to move, and I don't know, but I've definitely had dreams
this
like
it's
that.
a little different.
Okay,
It's a
right, yeah.
terrifying experience, but I experience it fairly often, like, on a fairly regular basis. And
Where, like,
so
you wake up and you can't
that
move.
is yeah, so you basically like my it usually happens after a dream, like after a vivid dream, what'll happen is my eyes will open and I can't move, and then I get this like it's always the same, you get like terror, like it's you this weird uncontrollable feeling of terror, even if you know what it is. Because now at this point, like I know what it is, but you still get the feeling. And the weird thing is that most people who experience it also experience this part, which is you oftentimes see like a shadowy figure either at the foot of their bed or like somewhere in the room
Okay.
or and
So that's happened maybe twice or 3 times in my life, but, yes, that does that
it's
where I'm
crazy, right?
like yeah,
So that created some great inspiration, which ended up turning into the dream sequences that Roman has
'cause poor Roman,
involving Jarek.
he's a little cuckoo for Cocoa
Jarek's
Puffs.
another
He's
person
like
who's
he's
based on a friend of mine.
oh, what how did he feel about, like, "You killed me off," like
Oh, no, he loves it. Let me tell you what, that's part of one of the longest running themes in the entire series story arc.
perfect,
That
okay,
is
because I know no, we didn't you barely scratched the surface. Because every time Jarek showed up, I was like, "Are we gonna get more answers?" Because Roman's like, "What the fuck?" But he doesn't, like he never gets answers, he just gets taunted, and that's even more frustrating. As a reader, I was, like, frustrated with
yeah,
him.
it's a and I'm sorry for that.
Sorry, not
But sorry,
sorry.
I'm
No,
not
you're not.
sorry. It's part of it is there seems to be something happening that is outside of Roman's control. And that the perfect way for me to introduce that was through this kind of like cosmic horror storyline or element of the story that he's experiencing. And that also, like I said, will carry on throughout the entire series story arc, and you will learn a little bit more with each iteration of Vitalerium.
I'm looking forward to becoming a constant state of frustration and just teasing. I was like, "Oh, am I gonna give you answers? No, not quite. Oh, is Jarek gonna reveal anything? No, not quite. He's just gonna keep being a dick." Like, it's like, are we gonna learn what that like shadow with tendrils reaching out? No, not quite. Like, okay, great.
Think you do cut this one would have been tougher to pull, but, you do figure out what that could be in the epilogue of the book. Yeah, so there's obviously at the end of the book, you figure out that there is perhaps a much larger conflict going on that essentially makes
That's
the trials of humanity seem insignificant.
petty. Like, you guys are all worried about these little things, and you guys don't even know what's really going on that's, like, so much bigger. I remember that's where in my notes, where they become more unhinged, where I was like, "Holy shit, for what? What?" Where I just like, "Holy shit, holy fuck, holy shit, what?" In all caps, exclamation point, all that's where, like, towards yeah, the epilogue, that's where it's like, again, now you're reminding me, like, of another thing that was going in my brain and where I was, like, trying to scribble down, but I was, like, going with the flow. I was, like, in the flow of the story, but then I was like, "Oh," I was just trying to keep track of everything, but yeah, I was, like, because it was, like, towards the what, the last, like, 6 pages, and I was like, "What is he doing?" I was like, "What is Nicholas doing to us?" Like, what like,
And
that's, like, what partial of my reaction to it.
I was trying to it's funny, my editor even brought that up. He was like, "I'm not sure if this is what you're going for or if it's something else," when he was, like, getting to the end of the book, and then he was comparing it to the beginning of the book, the epilogue and the prologue. He was like, "Is this what it is?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what it is." He was like and he was trying to basically get me to understand, like, we need to understand that is a different voice, like, a very different voice. And so that's why I wrote both part of the epilogue and the prologue in italics. That's why I was like, "Alright,
Yeah.
here's a very simple way to show that it is a very different voice that is basically telling," and it's also the reason why the book is basically written in omniscient perspective. That was
Yeah.
why I did it like that.
'Cause, like, the first what is it? Like, you lay out the whole history before the prologue, which was pretty helpful, but I wonder because you already do so much world building, where I feel like if you didn't lay it out point blank in the beginning, I feel like it still would've worked.
Oh.
Like, I feel like it's still from my perspective, because like, when I was like, "Wait, that wasn't the prologue?" I was like so when I got into it and then we just did such a great job of, like, world building that I would have like, readers would have definitely picked it up. It was super helpful, don't get me wrong, but readers definitely would have picked it up. But yeah, there's, like, a whole thing where it's like, if there's something in italics, we know something's up. Just because I read so much, and I just finished The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, and that was just, like, a whole all of that. I'm sure you're familiar
Oh,
with
yeah.
it if you're like to yeah, and I listen to all the audiobooks. It's like 250 hours of audiobook. And I'm not an audiobook, like, primarily audiobook listener. It's just the narrators, I think Michael Kramer and Kate Reading, they just did a phenomenal job, so otherwise I wouldn't not have been able to do it, but I feel like that's just what it reminds me of. It's just like you're weaving in that, and then you once the voice changes, like, then that's the cue for the reader, because even listening when it's multi-point of view, within the same chapter, it's there's a cue of some sort. That's just what that reminded me of where you're like, "Oh, the italics," and then it's like, you have to distinguish the voice. You saying, "Oh, the history or the prologue," and then so no, that's like it brings it all together, and now that's just, like, reminding me, like, just that's why I like, just talking to you, I'm like, "Okay, now my mind's like, just explosion emoji about it all." It's like about all that. That's why I said it's like we can like we'll go down like several tangents just within this one conversation about this crazy ass world that you've created.
Did you read the physical book or did you do the audiobook? I forget.
Just oh no, for this yours, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have a physical. I just had I think it was just the ebook that you sent me. Audiobook, I probably would have done okay. But I don't think I would have done, like, for the sake of, like, having the interviews and be able to, like, to write notes, when it's audiobook, I'm, like, doing other things, right?
Right.
Like, I feel like if I'm sitting if I'm sitting there, like, just listening to an audiobook, I feel like a weirdo, like, I'm just sitting there, like, staring at the room and listening like a creep, like, even my husband will walk in, and if I'm, like, just listening to a book, it's like, "What are you doing?" He was like, I'm listening." It's like, because I'm just sitting there like this and just, like, looking around and trying to pay attention, but, like, if I'm listening to an audiobook or a podcast or just I'm usually, like, doing chores or walking, and so I don't have, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go write something down," but it's just with the purpose of interviewing you guys where I wanna make sure I think the act of writing it down helps it stick in my brain a little bit better, even if I don't I don't know. So I have this, like, the little notebook, and then this is where I'm at just from all the interviews, but it's like all of this is
Oh,
notes.
wow.
And from, like, I don't know, like 20 books so far, and this is, like, the 2nd notebook I've gone through, maybe the 3rd notebook I've gone through in, I don't know, the past 2 years just 'cause I like taking notes, but I also like my responses to it, which is, like, how I was saying earlier, how I was like, "Holy shit. What the fuck, Roman? Okay." I was like even then, I have one of these notes that's like, "Roman is sneaky sexy. Okay, I see you, boy." It was just like me, just like little responses that go in my brain, and I'm like, "No, this is my process." And that's why it helps me to, like, get the vibe and, like, talking to you guys about it. No, it's a long way to answer your question. No, it was the ebook, the digital version. If I ever meet you in person, I will buy the book and request it
Of
signed.
course.
But to add to my trophy shelf, like, what I do is I have a bunch, like, over I don't know, this is my corner, but I have, like, rows of books scattered all throughout the room. For the purpose of, like, I don't th I've had one interview where I listened and it wasn't I was underwhelmed. I don't wanna be mean, but I didn't really like the book that much, and I don't know and then I still had to interview them, and I don't know if listening to it made a difference versus, like, reading it, so that's why I'll go with, like, my preferred because I know people who, like, they listen while they read, like, they have the audiobook
Yeah,
going, then following along,
I've seen that a
like,
lot
I'm
lately. A lot of people have come up to
yeah,
me because 'cause I've been doing conventions, and they ask they'll buy a book, and they'll go, "Do you also have" like, "Are you on Audible?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So,
yeah.
that is a thing. That'll really immerse you in the story. The reason I brought that up is because we were talking about the voices, and the audiobook I have is a production. Like, I found a really talented
Yeah, I
voice
was
actor.
gonna say, like, how does that process go? How does that experience for
That
you?
was a months-long odyssey in and of itself because we
And you got 6 more to
I
go.
know, but it was an absolute pleasure working with my voice actor. His name's Michael Neeb, and he does unique voices and accents for each character without making it, like, too cartoony, because that can happen
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes if it's, like, overacted or
absolutely.
if whatever. And then he goes back in post-production, he adds music, sound effects, voice modulation where it's appropriate, which once again becomes important at the
So is he
beginning and
like
the
an
end.
so is he like an independent? Because there's a graphic audio where they do all that. So is he like an independent that kinda, like, does that
Yes,
then?
yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's a lot of work, but that's
It
cool.
was, and going through each chapter after we read it, making sure the voices were right, making sure it was funny, he's a Canadian, and every once in a while, his Canadian accent would pop out, pop out, and I'd be like, "Oh, come on, man, like, you gotta fix that," and he's like, "I know, I'm sorry." He was a really cool guy to work with, but
So fun.
yeah, so I'm proud of the way that turned out, mostly because I didn't read it, because if I read it, everyone in the future would have sounded like they were from Boston, it would have pulled you right out of the story.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like, that's another thing about, like, world building and where it's, like, 700 years into the future where it's because I think you had one of your characters, like, speaking like, Roman's landlord or whatever, speaking Spanish, and I was like, "Is that Spanish? Is that vernacular? Did all that language like, how many languages made it 700 years without, like" but I just, like that was just my brain kinda being like, "W did that, like, languages part?" And then I was like, "Okay, whatever." Like, I gotta just, like, brush
Well,
past
because
it.
I also wanted to show that, and you'll probably see it a little bit more in book 2 and 3 where, different accents, different phrases, different kind of vernacular comes about from different planets. But Dioram itself was a planet where once it was colonized, there was a big rush to go there because it was like, "Oh, that's a new planet, new fresh start." There hadn't been a new planet colonized in a long time. And so people came from all over. So I wanted to include some people from Earth who had made their way over there and how they ended up making their way once they got there. So
Yeah,
that's
so, like, even 700 years into the future, Earth is, like, still around,
yes.
but it's like a new reality where it's like, oh, like, there are all these other planets that people travel to, and it's just well known. Even in the history of it, you were like, "Oh, it just becomes affordable," and or not affordable, but it's just, like, normalized where you're gonna travel and migrate or to other planets, and, so there's this almost that's a whole other can of worms that you can go with where it's just like, how are, like, people from Earth treated on other planets? It's just like, what it's like part of your world building that you touch on. So, yeah, I think that was something that I thought was, like, also really interesting when you were building the world where it's just like, no, like, Earth is still a thing. It's still
We
there.
made it.
It's like yeah. So, I'm gonna throw this next one at you. It's a two-parter. We talked about it a little bit. What were the most challenging parts to write? What were the most enjoyable parts to write?
That's a good question. Certain conversations were challenging to write, or I should say challenging to get right, because the first run through, the first draft it's the ideas are there, but maybe they're not the continuity isn't there, and they just need to be
Mm,
honed to be able to be
doubt a
the
little bit
best they
better.
can, exactly. Sometimes they were too long.
Mhm.
As you can see, it's not exactly a short book, and I probably cut out a good, like, 30, 40 pages by the time I was done editing. And it was small things, just shorten this part here, this part is unnecessary, just cutting things down where I can, and that ended up over the course of 600 pages, it makes a big difference. Yeah, certain conversations, different parts of the political intrigue portion were at times tough to write because I was trying to make sure that I wasn't giving away too much of what was going on. So as the reader, you're still, there's almost like a mystery element to the story because certain characters are trying to figure out what's going on, both within the government and outside of the government. And I wanted that I wanted the reader to be able to be part of that discovery so that they're learning about it at the same time as some of the characters are. So
Yeah.
making sure that I'm giving enough so that readers can follow and be like, "Oh, that is interesting. Like that's important. I should remember that."
Mhm.
Versus like because at times I was too subtle and it didn't pick up and then it was like this big bomb that just didn't like, "Oh, we didn't even allude to that earlier." And I was like, "Oh, we did." But and once again, thank God for my editor, John Smith. His literal name is the most generic name of all time, but he was a great editor. And that those were tough. The world building portions and the action portions were some of my favorite. I
I think I could tell because a lot, like, that kept it entertaining where it was just, like, action-packed, it was just fast-paced, like, enough where I wasn't confused, but I was just like, "Oh, shit, Roman, what are you gonna do?" Like, it was just like, "Okay, how's he gonna get out of this?" But it was also one of those, like, where I just remember judging him hard during most of just the decisions he made of, like, he's wasted and he throws a grenade during one of his missions in
yeah,
which, well, it kinda kicks off his situation, but I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "You're a fucking idiot." Or when he's like, again, and how call back to what you mentioned earlier is, like, seemingly, arguably toxic relationship with Monique, where he's just, like, showing off his abilities, and that's even then, I was like, "Dude, you do not want people to know about this. Like, what are you doing?" When he's just, "Okay, yeah, okay, whatever, like, throw a knife at
yeah,
me." I was just like, "Dude, what are you doing?" Like, that those are the moments where I judged it, but yeah, that exactly, like, I could tell you had fun with, like, certain parts because that's where, like, this story kind of was hilarious and it shined through and it, like, kept the story going, and also, I think when Monique and Roman were making fun of Modus, that was, like, fucking cute and hilarious. 'Cause they were just, like, goofy, like, tipsy or whatever, and, like, getting to know each other. I think there was another moment where they were, like, gonna fool around in an alley or something, and then he just, like, left his pants at his ankles, and he started goofing around,
yeah,
"Oh, I'm coming for you," and she's like, "What are you do" moments like that, I was like, "That is, like, adorable and hilarious and cute," and I'm like, "You guys need to go to bed."
yeah, yeah. And so actually, I take it back. That one scene, the recollection of the brownout, that that was my single favorite. I was proud of that when I finished that because the way that I wrote it was very, as you could see in the text, like I tried to make it he's jumping from memory to memory. He's got gaps, and you see that in the actual text itself.
It's
Eh,
realistic. If you ever gone out on a night out where you have a little too much and then the next morning you're like, "Oh, shit."
yeah, little regret, a little bit of fun, a little bit of, "Oh, no, what I'm gonna have to deal with this now." And, that was a very fun scene to write, and I gotta tell you, in the audiobook version, it's like that my audiobook guy, he deserves an award for what he did with that particular segment. It came out exactly as I imagined it, and he crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. Mike props to Michael
That's
Neeb.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I feel like that's not, like, rare, but it's, like it's such, like, a moment where you're just like,
yeah,
"Yes," like, he captured it. You're like, "Yes," because I imagine it's, like, a whole thing and where it's sometimes you just have to be like, "Okay, cool. This is acceptable. Okay, good job." But then when, like, those moments when you're like, "Oh, he nailed it," and, like, it's a total different feeling, I imagine.
and
I was like, I've never, like, recorded for a book or written a book or have that, like, process, but, like, I can empathize with that, like, revelation where you're like, "Ah."
that's also a good kind of, I guess, a good insight into the type of relationship that they have. I wanted them to have that kind of instant connection. That's why when they're first drinking after that bad meeting with Modus, they're hitting it off, like, very quickly. They've got a lot in common. But they also they push each other in a bad direction at times, in almost a childish direction. It's almost that's what he enjoys in her because he is allowed time to forget all of the pain in his life, but it's also
He
not
doesn't
necessarily giving him any sort of direction in his day-to-day life other than, "I'm finally enjoying something for once," which I'm sure he needed, but it's
Yeah, and he doesn't really get that with anybody else, like,
exactly. Which is why Monique's death is so pivotal to the shift in basically his trajectory in the story.
and you were cruel for making their last conversation, like, an argument. Like,
I know, that's
he never got to say, "I'm sorry," like, he never got to straighten that out. That's you're bad for that.
I know, I know.
Just remember, like I said, like, I have to, like sometimes with a big story like this, I have to let it marinate, and that's why I'm like, I can't I gotta move on to, like, a fluff. I gotta move on to, like, a holiday rom-com to, like, just clear palate cleanser because I once I like some of these things and these concepts will pop up into my head, and I just remember, like, this morning because I finished it late last night, and this morning I was like, "Oh, was like the last time they talked, besides running for their lives, was, him pushing her away because he cared because he didn't want her to be involved with this super dangerous mission, as bad as she wanted to be involved, as bad as she wanted to be a part of it. But even then, after the mission, even like during and after, I was like, "Oh, thank God she wasn't there." That because then he would have been blaming himself, like, because she definitely would have died, she definitely wouldn't have made it, or they wouldn't have been successful because he would have been worried about her the whole
Right.
time, and then it's just like but I imagine for Roman's character development, you had to Monique, I don't know. I don't know if that was, like, a plan from the beginning or if the characters told you this is how it had to happen.
It certainly wasn't something that I had initially planned on. I try and keep the plot fluid. There are certain major events related to some of the bigger conflicts that are going on, some of the big conflicts amongst the planets that are growing, that are hardwired in as far as at least the broad strokes of them. But how we get to those, I try and leave up to the writing itself. And so there, like I said, there are times where I find better ways to do things and I make changes pretty frequently throughout. There are times where I add, there are times where I take away.
What's easier? Is it easier to, like, add or is it easier to take
Way
away? I imagine they're both difficult.
way easier to add. Way easier to
Okay.
add,
I was
harder to
good.
take away. Because you do. When you're this close to it, you grow attached to the writing, and it's you're removing something from the core of what you're trying to create, and that's not.
You're like, "No, this is super important." Like
Yeah, and in the scheme of things, maybe it isn't, and once again, it's part of it. There's something really fulfilling about just the kind of pure creation aspect of this endeavor I've taken on.
Yeah.
And when you put time into something, it becomes hard to take away. It's very easy to add things. I do that more frequently. When I have to take something out, I'm much more strategic about it because, like I said, it's hard to part with things sometimes. But if it's for the good of the overall story, then you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I wonder about that during the editing process because 'cause I've spoken to, like, so many authors. I've been doing this for a few years, and I don't know. I do, like, an interview a week, but that's something that I always ask. There's a handful of questions I ask them, but one of the things I'm always curious about is, how is it for you cutting down or adding on or fleshing out? That it's I feel like it's different almost for every story. It's like
It is.
it or some people who their writing style, they're like, maybe they anticipate having to cut down, so maybe they try to be as concise as possible, but then they're like their editor's like, "Nah, like, go for it," you know?
Sometimes I'm sure I've talked with some, you've probably talked with more authors than I have, but I see people that writing style also makes a difference. Like I'm someone who edits as I go. So
Okay.
I do a lot of self-editing. And that's just because I don't know, maybe I'm just a little perfectionist. I just like to make sure that everything is ironed out by the time I'm ready to submit something. And so when I actually submitted the official first rough draft to the editor, my editor was like, this is not that rough. Like I see this as like 95% done. This you need to make this character's motives a little bit more evident to the reader. You need to cut down where you can, where you're a little bit too wordy with some of the descriptions. You need to make sure that things like that. But for the most part, he was like, "This is a very coherent story." I think he was surprised, like because again, this is
However other many jobs he has, he's like, "Oh, like, maybe it's a little refreshing for him," you know?
yeah.
Like, maybe, like, not making his job easier, but he was just like, "Oh, like, I can be" like, he can work with it a little bit more with a little bit more energy. I don't know. I don't know what the life of an editor is like. I've only edited, like I have one of my high school friends, I've edited her work, like, 4 or 5 titles for her because I was, like, English degree, but I'm like, with developmental wise versus proofreading, I'm, like, still learning that, but it also she reads, like, dark romance with a lot of taboo, and that's, like, the subgenre that of a romance that I'm not attracted to, and it's like I'm again, another tangent. It's like I have to separate the pen name from my friend because 'cause I've known her for, like, 20 years, and so I'm like I've gone to, like, book events, like, signings with her, kind of acting as her assistant, and I'm trying to help her with, like, her social media and stuff, but I'm like she knows that I would never if I was just shopping at a bookstore, I would never pick up her book because it's just not what I this is not what I do. So I'm trying to, like and that's what just looking at it from, like, an editor's point of view, where it's like, "Oh, like, I could tell you're getting better at this." Like, f the first title versus, like, the 4th title that I read of hers, and I'm like, "Oh, I could tell you're getting stronger. I could tell that you're doing better." So I that's what the only thing I make that comment was, like, I imagine he was just kinda like, "Oh, like, this is great."
I think he was just surprised that it was my first book that I had ever written
Yeah,
because
that's crazy. I wanted to ask about your experience of, like, writing your first book, even though you talked about it, but, like, of what like, big lessons learned, like, anything that you can I would just wanna explore that experience for you.
yeah, I definitely learned that you need to create a schedule and adhere to it by all, uh, no matter what. So for me,
Self-discipline.
yes, that's important. So I schedule out my writing times. I make sure that I stick to those and that I get it done. Not that I had any real trouble with it once I did that because I enjoyed the process so much. But the whole book essentially was written at 36,000 feet. So the plane just became my writing office. And so that was my writing time. And I would do writing and editing and other things outside of the airport as well. But that was a nice way for me to disconnect. And maybe I was just that much closer to space too. So that's so
Looking
that was
out the window and, you know.
yeah, yeah. And other things that I've learned.
Like, you're indie published, right? So that's
Yeah.
I
So
mean
I've got a little boutique
yeah.
publisher. They're called Atmosphere Press, and they were great. They provided a lot of different things to me that like I said, this was my first endeavor. They were good about helping me understand what I didn't know. Everything from getting blurbs, where they come from, how to submit for awards. And the cool thing is it's already won a couple awards now. I got the Gold Book
Yeah.
Award from Literary Titan. I got the Florida Publishers and Authors or Florida Author and Publisher Association. It's like FAPA. I won their
I'll
presidential
edit
award.
I'll edit
That's
it
it.
out,
Ooh,
it's
yeah,
okay.
whatever. But that's
No, that's
cool, and that's
awesome,
just
that's
fueling the
crazy,
fire
yeah.
for other books in the series. And they showed me how to go through those processes, how to list. They did all that for me. They listed it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and NetGalley. I hadn't heard NetGalley since I was in elementary school learning about the internet. That was a
Hilarious,
callback for sure.
because they're still a big deal, like, in terms of arcs and getting the word out.
Yeah, absolutely. So they helped me run that. They did a lot. They set me up with the editor and my proofreaders. The proofreading, good lord, I only went through 2 rounds of editing, and like I said, it was a very interactive process. It was very collaborative. My editor was fantastic. I went through 6 rounds of proofreading. That's the
With how many proofreaders, like, one person
No, it was
or
2 different proofreaders, and they do that on purpose to make sure that, once again, it's getting some people catch things, other people don't. It's
the different eyes and all that,
Yeah,
yeah.
'cause it's not a short book, despite the fact that it's like you said, it reads pretty fast, but I almost got 6 times through my own book. I almost got tired of reading my own book. Almost. I'll say almost. But still, that was a
That's one thing I give authors credit for is to, like they're like, "Oh, I had, like, 10 rounds of edits." I'm like, "How are you, like, not going crazy right now?" Like, I and then because you still have to do, like, your press, right? You still have to do, like, the hype. You have to still have to hype it up even though you're like, I have been this has been, like, in my brain immensely for, like, however many weeks or years or that's not I think that's the part that, like, a lot of people don't talk about is just how much not like, yes, it takes a lot of work, but just, like, the tediousness and, like, how meticulous you have to be and everybody else has to be, and then you have to, like, "Oh, I got the second draft back, okay," and then you're like you have to, like, prepare yourself
Yeah.
for yet another round of whatever, yeah.
And I think another thing I learned was that I feel like so many people, especially people who aspire to write, get caught up in this like, "Oh, I started a book and then I didn't touch it for however long," and yeah, you gotta sit down, you gotta write it, but you also need to recognize, like, you can't be afraid to do something wrong because you always have an opportunity to go back and change some things.
Yeah.
Like, I actually when I first released the book, I released the book, and then I recognized, like, oh, I really wanna like, I thought of a good idea. I was like, "I really wanna just tweak the wording on this whole, like, first part right there," and I was able to make those changes and then submit it and get it changed in the text for all of the books after it was already released technically. So, like, you always have opportunities to go back and change things. Just get it onto paper, man. So it'll
That's, like, the hardest part, I think, is just almost, like, not even just exclusive to writing a book. It's just, like, the hardest part of any big deal thing that you try to do is just to start. Like, it applies to a timeline of anything other than just writing a book. It's like, just start. You're absolutely right. You can't be afraid to, because, like, yeah, you're not gonna get it perfect in the first try. You're just not, and once you accept that, it's just like the world is your oyster. It's so liberating to just accept that I'm not gonna get this perfect on the first try. And, like, just accept that and just, like, fucking go ham, like, just go for it.
yeah.
It's so important to accept.
You gotta be unafraid to look foolish in the beginning so that eventually you can look like a pro. Because that's the only way you're gonna
No,
figure it
I
out. You just gotta dive
absolutely,
in
I
head
look I
first.
like it's so true. Because even, like, when I stumbled myself into podcasting, but even when I've listened to my first, like, interviews that I've done, I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, when I was just, like, a little, like, a beginner baby interviewer, and now I'm like, I own it. I'm like, I don't even care how much of a dork I am. Like, I know what I'm about. I read the book, and that's, like I know that a lot of I don't know how many podcasts you've been on. I think I, like, stalked your Instagram for a little bit. But, like, know that, like, a lot of authors have been like, "Thank you for reading the book," because it just makes the conversation so much better. And that's why I just, like, I make it a point to read the book because I know that, yes, it makes the conversation so much better, but it's like, it's also I have a hard time talking I can't have an authentic conversation with you guys if I can't dig into everything you guys got going on. Even when I was first, like, figuring things out, the difference is so obvious and it's so funny. It's cringe when I'm like, reading other I'm like, "Ugh," if I ever, like, release any episodes, I'm like, "Ugh, I'm gonna edit the shit out of them." Because I just don't I'm not up to par, up to my standards that I've got going on.
Yeah,
Oh, you're absolutely right.
it does make it makes for a more interesting conversation for sure, I think, when I interview with someone who has read the book because we can dive in, we can get into the weeds, and it sounds a little less promotional, like salesy, and we can have fun with it. That's it.
It makes things yeah, and it makes, like, finding the audience a little bit more tricky, but I feel like I said, like, whatever you got going on, I'm worried about, like, comfort and the quality versus the quantity. It's just like I said, like, we're about we're a little over an hour now, and I'm like, "Okay, I will try to, like, get us back on track because otherwise we would just, like, do talk about whatever." So I'm gonna throw this at you. Actually, hold on. First no, I'm gonna throw this at you. I'm gonna do it.
Throw it at me. Let's hear it. What do you got?
W What advice do you have for Roman? What advice do you have for Modus? What advice do you have for Norval?
Ooh, for Roman's probably the easiest because his a lot of his I guess his storyline is involved with rediscovering purpose, rediscovering discipline, and finding his path through life. And so my advice to him would be to, I guess oh man, that's a good question. He has to let go of his trauma. He has to find a way to proceed on the path that's been laid out for him, so to speak. And maybe we're going a little bit down like the fate conversation route, but he needs to follow his path and be unhindered by the trauma that basically formed him and made him ready to take that path. But for him to be successful on it, he's gonna need to reconnect with himself in a way that allows him to forgive himself and also act in a way that is becoming of someone or that is becoming of what's required by what he has to do. Does that make sense? That was a little
You're tiptoeing, but
disjointed.
I understand completely. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
because authors ask me, like, "What, at the beginning of the book, at the middle of the book, at the end of the book, what advice?" And I'm like, "If you gave him advice at the beginning of the book, he wouldn't listen to you anyway." So just just going forward, I think it does make sense for sure, at least to me. So
Okay. All right, good. For Modus is gonna need to learn how to maybe not be in charge and how to delegate in a different way. Because as you can see, as the story progresses and as you get to certain parts, you recognize that there are some blind spots that he has because he's at the tippity top. He's not delegating appropriately. And that ends up leading to some interesting events that occur. So,
I'm already we all got our God, what is his name? It's like Drez, he's super sus, and I'm pretty sure you don't have to confirm it for me, but he was a reason why the jig was up. We could totally see it.
I'd say you might be onto something there.
Yeah, yeah, and I can't wait to see what you do with that.
You'll see.
Yeah.
That part may or may not be already written. What was I gonna say? And then for who was the third character?
No,
Norval. Norval needs to have confidence in what he's bringing to the table, and that's going to certainly come to light as his storyline progresses with Roman and with kind of the new group that he's found himself wrapped up in. And his skill set is going to be one of the most important in ensuring their success. So he needs to make sure that he steps up and relays relays his concerns confidently and is tough with the people who maybe boss him around and things like that. And
I'm
you
so excited for what you do with his character. I love him so much, but he needs to grow a pair, a little bit, a non-scientific pair.
yeah.
You know, like, you know
It's funny. It's even when there's a moment when he's first with Roman and he does have it in him. Like when Roman is, I think, they're in the safe house that Norval is hiding, and Roman's like, "Oh, great, there's a girl involved." And Norval's like, "What does it mean to you? Like, isn't there someone that you would do that for?" Which makes Roman go, "Oh, shit." Like, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
once, but and it gives him a little introspective moment. But it does show that, like, he does have it in him. He needs to be a little bit more comfortable with letting that part of him show because he is incredibly smart. And there's a whole backstory I have planned for him as well that you begin to uncover a little bit more about Norval and why he's able to. Because you got to think about it. Most of the time, you have your theoretical physicists, your engineers, and they're almost like two separate arms. And he seamlessly does both. And there's a reason for that, and you'll discover that in book 2 that he is his intelligence far surpasses that of any average, even amongst some of the highest in terms of, like, intelligent folk, in terms of the scientists that he's working with. His intelligence far surpasses that, and it's due to genetic modification, and you find out how that is. It's actually alluded to in the first book when Xerus says something to him before he escapes the lab, where he's basically like,
Yeah.
"Considering where I pulled you from." And then immediately Norval's like, "No, I'm grateful. Trust me. Like, I'm." And so there's a backstory there as well that once again will be revealed in the next book and then in
You
future
just gotta,
books.
like, build, like even if it's not a spin-off, just, like, little novellas or, like, little you could okay, it's a business idea, you could do that, like, as a paid subscription of, like, "Hey, here's some more stories for you if you wanna know." So that's a free tip.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've on top of the book series, the audiobook series, I've also begun adapting the text to a comic book series. And the
That's so exciting.
yeah, so right now 2 episodes are out. The 3rd one will be out, like, next week, like, any day now. Um,
Okay. Where can we find that? 'Cause I'm, like, really interested in that, like, with the artists that you're working with, and who are you working with, like, a publisher, things like that?
so for right now, it's only available on my website. Or if I'm at
Okay.
conventions, I have the printed versions of I have a really reliable local printer that
Okay.
prints them for me, and I've been going to a lot of different conventions, some book-focused, some mostly like Comic-Cons, because
Yeah.
sci-fi, there's a lot of crossover there with the folks who are going to Comic-Con and the folks who like
So
sci-fi.
you're, like, based in Florida,
Yeah,
yeah?
and there's a lot of them.
Okay.
I have 2 more this year, and by the end of this year, I will have done 20 conventions.
That's amazing. That's awesome. In the past, like, what, like, a year and a half or whatever?
Year and, like, 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Are you ever go have you ever made your way to Chicago? Let me know, 'cause that's where I'm at.
I'll definitely let you know. Yeah.
'Cause that's where the event that I'm talking that I was telling you to ask you to reschedule, it's 'cause there's a book event in Chicago that I'm trying to make it to tonight, so that's why I'm like and I'm in the suburbs, so I'm like, I just worried about traffic and all that, but let me know for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I only just started branching out into some, like, out of state conventions, like, I just did Boston Fan Expo. I'm doing Rhode Island Comic Con in November.
And, like, on the East Coast and
Yeah, right now, it's expensive to travel with boatloads of books and things like that, so, yeah,
Yeah,
I have
I
to be
no,
smart
you don't
about it.
gotta tell me I traveled with an author who was doing a signing in Florida, in Orlando, from Chicago, where she was like, "Okay, I have 2 check bags. I'm gonna borrow one of your check bags." I'm like, "Yeah, you got it. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
Like, it was a whole thing, and yeah, she did we were, like, weighing it and everything, so we didn't have to pay extra money. No, I know the struggle. I appreciate the struggle for sure.
Well, I appreciate you for appreciating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. That's awesome because I get to interact with people who are A, sci-fi fans, B, I get to connect on something that is literally there's like a piece of my soul in this book. So it's cool to be able to tell
It's your
someone about
it's
it.
like your on page baby. It's your
Yeah.
baby, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you're very I get no, it's hard, like, for the authors that I sympathize with you guys because it's a thought and energy, brain energy, time energy, so much, like, everything that of who you are is dedicated to this, and and it's just like it's a delicate thing, you have to, like, you manage yourself, you have to manage your emotions, you have to manage the constructive criticism. It's a whole like, that's why I don't know, even if I don't like the books very much, I try my best to just be, like, kind, and not to be like, 'cause, like, I'm sure you're dipping your toes into, like, the online book community, and some people are just, like, horrible, and it's so stupid. I'm just like, it's so stupid, like, there's no reason why you need to be like it's never that serious for you as a reader to be like, "Why I don't like the cover, how like, wrong with you?" Like, get a life, like, I don't know, I just that's another tangent we can go on, but it's I just hear stories of authors who have gone a different direction with, like, for example, their covers because they got, like, so many mean messages about like, for their sequel, because they got so many mean messages about their first book, the cover of the first book, and I'm like, uh, what is wrong with people? I just don't understand, and I don't know if, like, it's a parasocial aspect of it where we feel like we have the right to just say whatever we want without restrictions. So, when I first started reviewing books, I just try to be fair and kind and not, like, mean, and if that doesn't the controversy, I think, is what gets a lot of ears and eyes on content, but I'm like, I'm not I'm just gonna help you promote your work, and I'm gonna give an honest opinion, and even if I don't like it, I'm gonna find something to talk about so that you can reach more readers that are maybe it's not my thing, but it's another person's thing, and part of me is just being like, I say yes to a lot. Like, I think you reached out to me, I don't even know, like, 6 months ago, like, to talk about this and stuff, like, I and it's like, this is the earliest spot that I got, but and even then, like, when I was like, "Oh, shit, I gotta read this book," I didn't even know what to expect because it was like I haven't read a sci-fi in a long time, and when I started, I was like, "Oh, shit," and, like, I finished it in, like, I don't even 3 or 4 days, and I have a family. Like, I have, like I have 2 kids who are, like, 8 and almost 5, and, like, it's not like I don't have a life, but I'm just, like, I was just so eager to get back into your world, and, yeah, I don't know. It's just I'm constructive. I try to be constructive because 'cause I'm like, "This didn't work for me. If it works for you, that's okay. I'm just letting you know, but I'm gonna help, like, get more graphics out there, get more word out there, get more whatever, the keywords out there to get, like, more exposure so that it shows up online, so if somebody's searching for Vitalerium, hopefully help you show up." It's just I don't it but it that I don't know why I got on this tangent. Imagine you have to turn into, like, your own marketer, right? Like, when you
Yeah.
it's and I know that's, like, so many authors I've talked to, they're like that they dread it.
Yeah.
It's like they
Luckily for me, my day job is literally sales and marketing. So, like, this it's something I'm familiar with, but it's not like the most. Yeah,
you're like,
literally.
"Hey, look at how awesome I am,"
Yeah,
you
I
know?
literally just saw a video and it said artists when they realize they're now forced to become content creators. And I think it's a scene from a Seinfeld episode where they're just like, "What are we doing? What are we doing with our life? What is this? What like life is this?" It's like,
Why did we do
and
so?
I reposted. I was like, "That's very accurate."
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like I enjoyed this kind of conversation much better. Like, I have no problem talking about it, but when I'm forced to record videos where I'm just looking at a camera, talking to really no one, like, it's like pulling teeth for me. So,
Yeah.
I at least if I love connecting with people on stuff like this, and I love talking about this stuff, but to just post content is exhausting.
It yeah, it is, and that's like I see people who do it, like, flawlessly. They'll all the you see the big t content and they're just, like, scripting, and they're, like, editing, and they're doing it well, they're committing to the bit, and it's like, they put, like, how much work they're putting into it,
Mm.
because when you try it, you're like, "Oh, fuck this." And it's hard, yeah, no, it's hard for me where I'll try to record, like, batches at a time. Like, for this, like, I might if you're okay with it, of course, if, like, I'll just record clips and, like, that, and then I'll just post and, like, I'm trying so much, like, I think I'm getting but, like, it's hard, it's such a time
Yeah, it
commitment to
is.
just post, like, just 2 or 3 weeks of clips, and it's just such it takes, like, my whole morning, and I'm like, "Where did my time go?" I'm like, "It's lunchtime already, like, what am I doing with" like, how did this happen? But so that's when I see who people are, like, really successful at it, I'm like, they deserve that success because they put the time in and they do it well, and I'm like, no, I'm right there with you, or I'm not like I do well, like, with this, like you said, but, like, as a mass, comedian personnel, I feel like just, like I feel a little bit awkward. Like, I feel like I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's definitely add me as a collaborator when you put those clips out because I need some more content. But
No problem. No, some authors will be like, "No, add me. Can you add me? Add me as a collaborator." And I'm like, I don't want to presume. Like, I don't want to presume just for like request. So now I'm just like, I'm gonna request, turn me down, that's okay. Like,
yeah.
you could just decline, and that's okay, I just do it just in case. So just a couple more questions before we wrap up
Yeah.
here. Thank you for giving me so much of your time so far. One of the questions I definitely wanted to ask you was, what this might be a little bit off, but what are you doing to take off, like, when you're writing and when you're getting deep into these, content demand or book writing and editing and all that, like, how do you, take a step away and get out of the zone? Like, what are you doing to for your me time?
That's a very interesting question because I don't have a whole lot of it. For me, actually, the me time has become the writing because, I basically have like 3 jobs right now. I'm doing the medical device thing, I'm traveling, I'm working with clinics and hospitals and introducing new technology. I'm helping my wife is a surgeon. She's a badass. So I'm helping her build her practice, the business plan, helping her find properties, projections, all that kind of stuff, the back office
Power couple.
business. Yeah, she's awesome. She's also my toughest beta reader and my one of my biggest supporters. So I appreciate the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been great. She's not afraid to tell me when different parts
No,
suck
that's
either, which
sometimes that's what you
oh,
need,
it's
yeah.
the
You're like, "A woman would never do this."
incredibly important. If you
Yeah.
want your
Yeah,
writing to
absolutely.
read as if you want it to read real, you've gotta make sure you get a little bit of insight where you may not
So,
have it.
curious, does she read for leisure?
Yeah, she's part of a book club actually in South Florida.
Okay, because I'm wondering, like, because it's funny how because Roman definitely, like, partakes in those activities. I wonder if, like, she because male authors, I've noticed, they, brush past the and so I was just wondering, like, whatever advice at any pointers that she would have given you about, "Hey, the romance part of it," or if you're just like, I'm just curious about that.
Actually, that part she had surprisingly little feedback on. She liked it. She thought it was fun. Like she enjoyed those
Okay.
portions. There were parts where I think I had made certain violent scenes maybe a little too intense at times. And she was like, you got like there
Uh,
was a part where both of my beta readers, her and another, actually my other beta reader is my brother. And my brother is going to be I know he's gonna be honest. He's also gonna be very constructive in the parts that could be better. My wife is gonna straight up tell me, "This part sucks." And, like, for,
"Baby, I love you, but"
there was a portion of the scene in, like, chapter 2 with Roman's parents that was particularly gruesome that I had written in, and
I was gonna say
she was like, "You
I
need to
could have
take
seen
this
that
part out."
going a certain way.
Yes,
Yeah.
and basically, she was like, "This part you need to take out. It's too soon, too rough, like, you're gonna turn a lot of people off right from the get-go," and I was like, "Okay," and then I realized that the way that I wrote it, which ended up being the kind of the final version, it just it came off as just as dark, just as effective in terms of relaying the type of society that they live in and, what it's
Right.
like to live under an oppressive government like that.
Like, I got the point across without having to go there.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So that part, she's been integral to a lot of different creative decisions I've made,
I
so
love that. I love that she's also not, like, tiptoeing for you.
no,
She's just like, "Hey."
no, we speak very openly in our house, yeah. I'm helping her with her business there, and then I've got the book business, which, it's a one-man show, and I'm planning podcasts and trips to different conventions and working with online sales and running the website and shipping all of the stuff when it gets ordered, at least when it's bought from my website. When if you buy it on
Right.
Amazon, That's probably the easiest for everyone, or Amazon or whatever,
But
barnesandnoble.com, whatever.
I would always assure people to I always try to include links to, like, for people to buy directly through the authors because even if it's a little bit for you, I feel like it's a little less money to the man, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and I'll make sure to get you those links, by the way. But yeah, so
Perfect.
the me time
Well,
is
no, they for your me time, yeah.
yeah. So that circling back, yeah. So the me time is extremely sparse because we also have a 2-year-old amongst all of that. So I don't.
Oh god, I know how fun that age is.
Yeah, she's so cute though. I
Uh,
can't. You can't like.
oh, so you're a sucker because it's a girl, so you're already in trouble. I bet you were in trouble from day one.
She is because she is adorable. It's tough. It's tough to, but we're a good team, my wife and I, in terms of making sure that we
That's so
teach her discipline
that
and that she understands, like, yeah, you can't always get everything that you want right
it's
now. And we've gotten
it's one day at a time, dude, like,
yeah,
it's the only unsolicited advice I will give anybody is one day at a time, seriously. Like
taken. Yeah.
Screaming for like I've got like 2 boys, they're 8, he's in 3rd grade, and then the younger one he's gonna be 5 next month, and he's in his last year of preschool. And it's the Wild West, I swear. Like, the second one, he's like a spawn of Satan, and I don't know if it's a second born, so I don't know. I don't wanna scare you if you're trying to have another one, give her a sibling, but and I was one who was, like, holding out for a girl, but as I had 2 boys, I was like, I'm
That's
good.
enough.
I'm done. Like, there's a chance that I will have a 3rd boy if I am pregnant again. I'm not interested. Like, I just, like because I would just lay down on the floor in defeat every day because when I'm mom and I don't wanna say, like, I'm the soft one. My husband probably thinks I am because he's, like, he's more stern, he's more particular, and I'm, like, more go with the flow, and I'm gonna choose my battles. I don't care if you're only having, like, 4 bites of your breakfast. Let's get out the door. You gotta go to
Mm.
school. My husband is the one who's like, "Eat your food." Oh, and so I don't like, with the both of them, I'm like, it's at that age, they're at that age where they're, like, becoming people, and it's interesting, and it's because I could pick on them.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they could pick on me. Like, my 8-year-old, he roasts me, like, so bad. He, like without even like, he kinda know, I almost wanna high five him. Like, one of the times we were, like my husband and I were kind of discussing about, like, some, like, household item where we were gonna, like, put something, like, "Oh, we're gonna put this in this room, put this in this room, like, what do we want?" Whatever. And then my 8-year-old, he, like, chimes in, and we're like, "Hey, you don't pay rent. You don't have a voice here. Like, it's not up to you." And he just looks at me, he's like, "I'm gonna be taller than you." And I'm like, because I'm 5'3" on a good day, and my husband's like he's not tall, super tall, but he's 5'10". I'm pretty sure my kids are gonna be taller than me within a few years, and then so I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah, but you're not right
because
now.
he's probably right. Oh, I
Still.
know, he's probably right, but I was just like, "Excuse me," like, it's just, like, certain, things like that where it's funny, but it does, like, having a child definitely, like, adds more to your family and more to how you're learning about yourself and how you're learning about how you work with your partner. Because it's like you see how your wife is as a mother, you see how you are as a father, and then you see how, like, that new relationship, that new role, how you guys, like, work with each other. It's a whole thing. I'm sure, like, if you known by now, but it's like 2 I say it's like a three-nager, terrible twos, but it's like a three-nager. When they're 4, they're, like, well, getting the hang of it, but I don't know. I don't know, just think of your worst personality traits, and that's what you gotta prepare for.
Fair enough. That's great advice, actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's too funny. Kids are great. Kids are awesome.
I know, it's like that's my ramble on parenthood from me just being like, so let's see. Oh, okay. What do you hope readers get out of, Vitalerium?
So when I was writing this book, just a lot of current events for inspiration as well. It's not a
Mm,
one for one, but there is definitely
no,
some
I can
inspiration
kinda
derived.
tell.
And I would just challenge people to one here's a good one. So one of the things I showed was the dichotomy between the 2 different types of media. And you've got the state-run media, and then you've got your at in the book, it's actually illegal media goes that far.
Yeah.
And so I think just challenging people to not take everything they hear at face value. And maybe if you see something that you're like, oh, that resonates, like, good. That's my point. Art is supposed to imitate real life, right? Or at least reflect it, right? But I would challenge people to not try and recognize their biases, just the lens that they're looking at it through, and maybe understand that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you're gonna have your own biases, and you're gonna see things in a certain way where other things may take the same exact text and see something entirely different that
Yeah.
supports their side. And my whole goal was to make this kind of like a nonpartisan, like, let's look at human nature and the nature of unchecked power and the nature of different ways in which we could really go wrong, not only as a society, but just as a species in general. I think sci-fi is a great outlet for that because it allows us to fast forward and look at different pitfalls for humanity and potentially even write different ways out of them.
Yeah.
So that was what I wanted to relay in a sense, even if it was subtle. And that's what I hope readers take that from the book as well. That's
I think, like, self-awareness is no matter where you're at, self-awareness is, like, it
yeah.
and you're absolutely right, 'cause talking about either side of the aisle, I feel like there is so many 'cause that yeah, and I'll just lightly touch on it, otherwise it's another tangent we can go on, but I think that just noticing what your algorithm is doing
Mhm.
and, like, noticing that there's so many like, the fact that, like, the internet is just so free and expansive. Everybody has a voice, and that means, like, the people that you're listening to, they vote. They can vote.
Mhm.
Like, so it's just no matter how much is, like, overtaking your attention span and you're influencing or not influencing or reassuring your belief system, you just have to just self-awareness is so important, and not just for, like, individuals, but, like, for people who have a huge, like, platform. It's like, I feel like there's so many people who are like, we're not seeing the whole picture, and if I feel like if we saw the whole picture, we'd be so much more, like, regulated. I don't know, like,
No,
I don't know if regulated is the right word, but, like, it's just and either side of the
yeah,
aisle,
more
it's
measured. So like
yeah.
I think I feel like nowadays identity becomes like so tied to politics, which is, I think, dangerous. Because if
Yeah,
that becomes your
absolutely.
identity, then, the person on the other side, whether they're your countrymen or whatever, that's gonna become eventually your enemy, and we find ourselves in
Yeah.
fairly polarized times now. And I think conversation needs to basically be something that we prioritize and look at who people are, not just by the political identity that they may have, because
Even if
that is
like
not what everyone that's not
yeah,
the
even just not for an audience. Like, if it's just I bet if you get people on 2 sides of the spectrum with not cameras around, with nothing, just in a room, and they just talk, I feel like there'd be so much more understanding, even if it's very little understanding. I feel it'd be much more constructive than what a lot of people have been doing lately is, like, putting cameras and having it orchestrated and set up and all that because it's we just I feel like we just see a lot based on what people and what's shaped to be seen,
Yeah,
for sure.
and what I think is important is just recognizing that I think, like, most people, the majority of people are good-natured people who just wanna see the world become better. There was a great line from I don't know if you watched that Fallout series on Amazon Prime. It was fantastic. I played the Fallout games, but there's a line where they're looking out at a city that was nuked, and the girl who was basically in the fallout shelter just her whole life, knew nothing of the outside world, was like, "What happened?" And he said, "Same thing that always happens. Everyone wants to save the world, they just couldn't agree on how," or something to that effect. And to be able to make sure that you maintain that trajectory peacefully, you gotta foster
Yeah.
conversations, and you need to have conversations with people like that. You can't just watch the things that you like to hear and that agree with your beliefs. You got to hear everything because we're learning till we die. And that means that you need to be open to hearing different things because otherwise what ends up happening is the two different sides are driven apart for too long, then eventually the only solution that seems reasonable for either side is for one to come out victorious, and that's essentially what happens through
Yeah.
before you get dropped into Planet Diorum, where now you've got the
Yeah.
state-run media, you've got the single party, and you've got essentially everything else is illegal.
So we could talk about nails. OMG. So he was so, like, I don't know, he was a fucking, like, wild card. He was
Exactly. He was the Always Sunny in Philadelphia Charlie wild card. You had no idea what to expect from him. He was just drug-addled every moment that he was in the book, and he said
I love
crazy things. He
I loved Roman's, like, response to him. That was, like, an example of Roman being confronted with a situation that he had no control over.
Yeah, he just yeah. And I wanted to show, like, a little bit of vulnerability there too, because that's just showing creating a three-dimensional character and putting them in different situations so you can see, like, I mean, a well-rounded character is gonna come off better, and Nails is a great way to show, like, what happens when you meet, like, just a psycho, just a hilarious, like, untamed, just unbridled ridiculousness from that guy. That was so much fun for me to write
Was gonna say
because
that whole group was so uncoordinated, like, even just appearance-wise. Otherwise, they knew how to work together, but they were, like, all dressed like, Roman was like, "Are you serious,
yeah.
guys?" And they're like,
What?
"What?" Like
And I wanted to show, like, that love the kind of the ragtag team that some just because of how well they know each other and how well they interact with each other and know how to get along some crazy how, that always makes for, I feel like, an interesting dynamic, and especially when you throw in high stakes action types of conflicts, you get to see how they operate under real stress, and once again, that was incredibly fun to write.
I was gonna say that also offered readers an opportunity to see Roman totally out of his element because, oh god, I forgot, like, whatever her name was, the pop star, she was like, "No, this is gonna happen. Like, I insist, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm" like, she didn't say it, but she was like, "This is my job, and,
Yeah,
like,
she's like, "I'm
I'm
holding the purse
hiring you."
strings."
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, straight up, she's like, "I'm paying you, and this is what I need to happen," and he was like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
It's like and then he was given, like, the most impossible situation almost, but they worked well up until they were
Somehow.
given it until, like, I feel like so many other characters, it was just, like, almost impossible for them to get out of it, like, alive.
Right.
Like, the fact that they got 3 3 people out of there, 3 hybrids out of there, what, like, 4 hybrids technically,
Mhm.
plus 2 of them, it was like a miracle almost, like, you threw everything at them 'cause I would again, that was another thing in my notes where I was like, "Wait, like, what's this team? Like, this cyborg team? What the fuck? Oh, holy shit," and that's what made me be like, "Oh, good thing Monique isn't there because she would not have made it, or Roman would not have made it because he would have been worried about her."
And,
Yeah.
yeah, that was it's also fun because it was fun for me to write because, like, these types of action scenes, you can in real life, when you run into conflict, like, I'm not gonna pretend to know what it's like to be in a gunfight, right? Once again, I try and do my research so I can be as accurate as possible, but you go in with a plan, and then you end up having to just creative problem solve under intense, high stress, and so it just goes to show, like, it doesn't really matter what they were walking in there with, they were gonna have to figure their way out of it no matter what. No matter how crazy the team was that he was dealing with. I think it's also cool to see the team that Valeria has because one of the things that's interesting about her character, and you get to see her a little bit more as well in future iterations of the book, but because she is such a huge celebrity and because of the access that she has due to that, she's most of the time you have to have like a very special license to be able to
Yeah.
utilize any spacefaring craft. That's how they basically modulate space travel and control society. She's able to skirt around that, and so she's she has a finger in everything, and that's why she runs with such an interesting crew. She's got her muscle, who is cyborged out, Strider, and Strider has bionic arms and legs. He's just a house of a human. And then you've got, what's his name, Nails, who
12 grenades strapped to his
he
crop top, whatever, like, and
just
his
a
fanny pack of drugs.
yeah, just a wild card, but absolutely fearless. Like, almost like he's like an overgrown child in a way, like he's just, "Nothing can happen to me, so I'm just gonna run in guns a-blazing." And then you've got Dieter, who's the most measured one, but also, like, kind of modified to be so because of the amount of cybernetic enhancements that he has. Like, Roman looks at him in the book, he even describes, he's like, "Whoa, that guy's got, like, probably $1 billion worth of
Yeah,
cybernetic enhancements," like, the type of stuff that you can't get anywhere. Like, that's
and,
it,
like
like,
and then
immediately
that moment where he, like, loses
eh
his cool, you're like, "Oh, shit," like, shit's just been dialed, like,
yeah.
yeah, that's like he's so composed and just robotic, and then when he's not, you're like, "Oh,"
Oh,
like, yeah, 100%.
that was another very fun scene for me to write. I enjoy the action scenes because it allows me to, once again, show characters under stress. It allows me to put the reader at the edge of their seat, and I try and write those scenes in a way where you really you're you're with each character for every little step, not just the events that happen. "Oh, that was crazy." You're getting the emotions they're feeling while they're in it. You're getting what's going through their mind as bullets are whizzing through over their head or plasma charges from a Vitalerium rifle. You're like, you get to almost get a little taste of the fear that they're experiencing, and I try and write those in a very specific, measured way so that you can feel like you're reading, but you feel like you're there, like you're on the edge of your seat,
Well, it's because
wondering
like,
what's gonna happen.
so many situations that you put the characters in, it's just like, "Oh, they're gonna get out of this. Oh, they're gonna get out of this," but then it's like, "Oh, shit, they might not get out of this," and
Yeah.
when Roman's like he has that significant moment where we think he's gonna find a way to save everyone, and he can't, and he has to accept that, and that's, like, also another, like, point in his step in his, um, or devolution into what he ultimately becomes, where he's like, "Fuck," like, yeah, and that it was heartbreaking for me as a reader where I was like, "No," like, I wanted him to save everyone, and then
I
he had to
know.
accept that he couldn't, and then for the reader, for me at least, it was like it became really obvious that he can't, and he has to think of the priority, and it sucks, and that's, like, very realistic, I feel like, to people who have been in that situation, as far as, like, war or secret missions are concerned, for sure.
Yeah, and not everything goes to plan, and you have to make the best of the situation that you're in. Yeah, yeah, that was those scenes are exciting for me to write, and I enjoy
Yeah.
a lot, so expect a lot more action in book 2 and 3 and so
Oh,
forth.
I'm ready, I'm not ready. I'm like, I'm ready to not be ready. That's the best way I could say it. It's like, I'm looking forward to the the chaos that you've got, the organized chaos, I guess I should say, that you got going on with your epic saga.
Yes,
Okay, so
excited
I
to
will
bring
s
it to you.
for yeah, that's what we need. We need that energy. Perfect, perfect. Vitalerium, Descent into the Void, that's out now. I recommend it to anybody who's welcoming sci-fi, high sci-fi, epic, complicated story with fun, crazy characters and, like, a little touching a little bit on anything. It's got a little romance, it's got politics, it's got just underground things, and then it'll throw you for a loop. So it was super pleasant surprise, super fun conversation. Thank you for giving me so much of your time and your patience. And when and if you're ready to talk about the next story, the next installment, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat again. And there you go. That was Nicholas Keating Casbarro. We're talking about his book, A Vitalarium Descent into the Void. That book is available now. Check out the show notes to see links where you can find Nicholas online and on social media and where to purchase the book. In the show notes, you'll also see where to find Cantina Book Club on your favorite social media book communities like Bookstagram, Book Talk, BookTube, Facebook, Threads, all that good stuff. Never miss out on book reviews and author interviews. Make sure you follow and subscribe. If you have any book loving friends who are looking to get more out of their reading lists, please share Cantina Book Club with them and so that they can find upcoming interviews and book reviews. Another way to help this podcast is to head on over to your favorite podcast player and give Cantina Book Club a rating and review. It helps me reach more listeners and book lovers like you. And that goes for any podcast that you listen to. It's one of the easiest things that you can do to help out. If you need book recommendations, please reach out to me. I love, love, love speaking to new book lovers, and if they need a recommendation, I am already with my favorites from all genres. I love suggesting books. Or you can head on over to cantinabookclub.com where you can find more in-depth book reviews from all genres as well. While you're at it, you could subscribe by entering your email on the website so that you could get reviews and episodes delivered directly to your inbox. If you want to support Cantina Book Club even more, you can donate by finding the form on cantinabookclub.com. Whether it's a one-time donation or as little as $1 a month, I seriously appreciate the support and will share my appreciation by giving you a shout out on the show and maybe something extra. And finally, one of the best ways to help authors promote their works is to head on over to Amazon, Goodreads, or wherever you leave your book reviews. Give the title that you've recently read, rating a review. Besides actually buying the book and shouting out on social media, reviews and ratings seriously do help them out. Thanks so much for listening and see you next time. Cheers.